show. I'm Obiora Ilo, and as usual, I'm so excited, so happy knowing that you're part of the show tonight. Well, it's on a night when so much is happening. I remember on Sunday afternoon, we were talking about the fireworks that we're expecting on Monday concerning the Saraki Ekweremadu arraignment, and of course we're also looking at the fireworks that was going to come from the confusion and controversy in Abia State. But we woke up on Monday to hear that the judges on vacation, so a lot of those cases were postponed, adjourned. I mean, that's what they say when it's about the law. They were adjourned, so saving a lot of us the trouble, the inconvenience of what we didn't quite understand. Of course, you know, the raging controversy about, the government, the Buhari government is witch hunting Ekweremadu and Saraki because they went against the APC and became the president and deputy president. And the Buhari government is saying nothing like that. We are fighting corruption. This is corruption, and there are no sacred cows. Well, we spared all that. And then in faraway United Kingdom, we woke up also and suddenly saw that we just have one candidate that's going to be prime minister. And sometimes, you know, they say you won't be judged by what you don't say. You'll be judged by what you say. That was what actually happened in the United Kingdom. One of the contestants for leadership of the ruling party made some comments in an interview, and that knocked her off. She had to apologize and leave the race. So very soon, a woman will be will be prime minister of the United Kingdom as early as tomorrow, because tomorrow the prime minister is tendering his resignation, and then maybe Wednesday, Thursday, we'll have a new prime minister of United Kingdom. I can assure you the prime minister is going to be a woman. But back home, the controversies continue. The president is being accused of being very, very partial in his appointments across board. I mean, a lot of people talked about the security infrastructure, and his opponents are saying that just maybe one or two, all the other officials that are manning our security outfits in Nigeria are all northerners. But it looks like the president is not listening. It looks like he doesn't care, because the appointments continue to come and they're all pointing towards the north. Not too long ago, an MD was appointed for the NNPC, northerner. And just today, a managing director was appointed for the Nigerian Ports Authority, a northerner, 40-year-old Hadiza Bala Usman, who until her appointment was the chief of staff to the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai. And a lot of people are asking, can't the president get a woman, competent woman, who is not a northerner, maybe a southerner? Must his preferences be for northerners? Is it an agenda? Is it, you remember the 95%, those that voted and those that didn't vote, and of course the presidency denied that, but it's all pointing to, it's all looking like we are still having the 95%. But in all this, some analysts are saying that the worst hit is the southeastern part of Nigeria. And they're saying that all these agitations, IPOB, Biafra exit, and all that, is because the president has continued, in quotes, it's not my words now, to show that maybe he has a grouse with the southeast, I don't know. But that's what people are saying. And it doesn't look like the presidency is caring about that, because the appointments keep going to the north. So tonight we have very prominent Southeasterners to look at this seeming imbalance in the appointments and to, tell us how they feel and what they feel and what they think should happen and what they think are the reasons for what is happening. I have with us tonight Chief Chekwas Okorie, Chairman, United Progressive Party, UPP, and I also have Chief Dan Nwanyamu, who is an attorney. Well, Dan says he's partyless. Well, I don't know. That's what he keeps saying. As far as parties are concerned, he's an orphan right now. No father, no mother. But Dan was a former chairman of the Labour Party. But more importantly, he comes from the Southeast. So he'll be joining us to talk about this seeming imbalance that people are talking about in the appointments of the president as it concerns the Southeast. If you've been following what has been happening in the country, you'll discover that one of the most vibrant departments of our country, segments of our country, or call it, the entertainment industry has been in turmoil. The P-Man has been comatose. At a particular point, they had more than 4 or 5 leadership. 10 actually, 10. They had 10. I don't want to mention the names of those that were leading those, how do they call it now? Factions, yes, factions. They had so many. And, what bothered a lot of Nigerians is that this is an area that is bringing so much money into the economy, and they can't get their act together. But something happened today. I don't know the magic, I don't know the miracle, but the Minister of Labour, Dr. Chris Ngige, inaugurated a caretaker committee, and part of their job is to do what? Organize elections, credible elections for P-Man. Tonight I have Kevin Lucien, who is the chairman of that caretaker committee. I have Chris Mba, who is deputy chairman of that committee, and I have Charles. Charles is a member of that committee. Charles is one person that has played so much role in bringing all these factions together. He is also, I'm sure you're seeing them on our screens right now. So we'll take a break. When we return, I will talk with Chief Chekwas Okorie. For those that understand Igbo language, he's called Ojozi Ndibo, the man that how is it transliteration or translation? The messenger. The Igbo messenger. He's here in the studio, and we have Chief Dan Nwanyamu. They'll be joining me in a moment. Don't go away. It's your show, the O and M Late Show.
Are you watching Nigeria's biggest late night show?
The government is doing the same best.
Buhari himself is an issue. Just as the Buhari organization has made Goodluck Jonathan an issue, we have lost an institution set up to fight corruption. And what this is at the chief of that is born out of what they symbolize. The average Nigerian man to know. What do you have for him? Malika, you don't know what for a while. What happened? He came on the journey and discovered that we are too transparent.
You are still watching your late night show, the O and M Late Show. And to talk about the president's appointments, how it has affected and impacted on the Southeast, is Chief Chekwas Okorie and Chief Dan Nwanyamu. They are joining me right now. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Please sit down, gentlemen. Well, everyone, after the coming of APC as the government of the day, I was talking to one of my friends, a politician, yesterday, and he said, well, we are just waiting and hoping that we'll hear something, appointments here and there. But there have been appointments. Every day there are appointments. And a lot of people are accusing the president of bias, of nepotism, of favoring the northern part of Nigeria. And I've also heard people say the most hit is the southeast. Chief Checkers Okorie.
Yes.
Do you feel the same way? Or you think that everything is just fine?
Everything can never be fine under the circumstance we have found ourselves. I feel very sad the way things have turned out. When the president made his initial appointments in the presidency, people noticed quickly that there was exclusion of the southeast geopolitical zone, and protests were made, especially on the pages of the newspaper. And the assurance from the presidency then was that this was just the beginning, that when other appointments will be made, things will be balanced, a bit to accommodate everybody, including the southeast. And these appointments have been made severally. One can say that the key appointments have all been made. It is not just that most of the appointments went to the north. It is that the southeast got 0 appointments. If we are talking about southeast not getting sufficient appointment, it's a different matter. We are looking at 0 appointments, and it is difficult to explain, it's difficult to defend, and those who speak for the presidency, especially his media aides, are now unable to say what has happened or what is happening. I go further. The Igbo people are a critical mass in the Nigerian equation. There is no state in Nigeria, no matter what the population figures will tell you, there is no state in Nigeria that you do not have the Igbo as the second largest ethnic group outside of the indigenous population of that state. And when you have that kind of spread, when you have that kind of number, you do not ignore such a race in the manner that the Igbo have been ignored. This is the very first time in a long time that there is no Igbo in the Security Council of Nigeria. And this is very worrisome. We're also looking at a situation where even the board of NNPC was recently constituted. And the 2 states in the southeast zone, Abia and Imo, make up the 9 states that constitute the Niger Delta area, oil producing area, so to say. And not one person from there was considered suitable to belong to such board. You can go on, and the more you remember these things, the more you recount these things, you begin to ask yourself questions. Whether indeed there is any special offense that the Igbo people have committed to deserve this level of alienation.
Okay. Let me go to Chief Dan Nwanyonwu. Is there any offense that Igbos have committed to face this level of alienation? That's what Chief Chepa said. And I'm asking, things happen, they say, is it in our stars? Is it in what we have done? Is it in what we have not done? What could be the reason for this seeming alienation that Chief Chepa has talked about?
Well,
think I want to start by saying that Ojozi has laid the foundation to this discussion as to what the Igbos did or did not do to warrant this treatment. It's something that President Muhammadu Buhari has to answer himself. But I must tell you that the Igbo people, over 80% of Igbos, and being conservative, believe that President Muhammadu Buhari hates them. They believe that he doesn't, if it is possible, he will exterminate them from the surface of the earth. That is their belief. And let nobody pretend by telling him something different. And it is good you finish this program, you send a copy to him. Because the problem we have in this country is that the problems we have as a nation are the issues that people would not like to be discussed. Nobody would like to talk about them. They say, no, don't go there. You'll be seen as a tribalist. No, don't discuss it. It is not good. You will finish yourself. But that is why every day, year in, year out, we are at a particular place without movement. The Igbos, as has rightly been pointed out, are persons who believe in Nigeria. And that's why, as Ojozi said it, there is nowhere in Igbo land, in Nigeria, you will find an Igbo man. Igbos will get to Birnin Kebbi. If you go to Daura, I'm sure there are many Igbos living there that have built houses in Daura. How many other ethnic groups have done that in other parts of Nigeria? How many? Because Igbos believe that Nigeria is one. And there is this saying in Igbo land that Ebo Nebi Kona Awaji, meaning where you live, you protect and defend. I think I got it right.
Yes.
So that's why you see an Igbo man, he gets to a place, he wouldn't bother about the prejudices, the biases, the hunches. He will go ahead and do his things. But you don't find that. That goes to show you how the Igbo race has accepted the issue of Nigeria as a country. Most of us, when we say these things, we find it difficult to do it, but it has to be done. Because President Muhammadu Buhari, I, speaking to you, met him in 2010. I wanted him to be presidential candidate of the Labour Party in his residence in Kaduna. The second time I took my national secretary, we went back. We had useful discussion. President Buhari talked to me as somebody passionate about putting Nigeria together, revamping the economy, creating employment, making everything that Nigerian happy. That's not what I'm saying. Somebody asked me, what if he had agreed to run under the Labour Party and he won the election and I'm having this situation? I said, I would have fought President Buhari as a national chairman of the party to a standstill. Because the chairman of APC doesn't know the powers of powers, what is behind party supremacy. Oyego cannot be there. Appointments are made. I saw him the other day. He said, President has done well. He's doing very well. The other thing he said was that, well, our popularity has gone down, unlike during the elections. No, it is the duty of the party to bring the leadership in line with the party programs and mission and vision. It's not a question of, the president has no program. He contested the election through a political party.
So the party should play a part.
It is the party that should play a part. You can see now the APC leadership has gone back, because I must tell you, what we are having today is an embarrassment. I have Fulani friends. Some of them came to my office today. We were there for almost 4 hours. They're embarrassed. They are embarrassed.
Okay.
So it is not only, it's not favoring the Igbos. If it had been the other way around, those of us would have said the same thing. But before you go, I have told Igbo people, you should expect nothing from President Buhari. I've attended different talks and I've said it. Consider this government as bad investment. And most of them are now coming to reality that honestly speaking, the Igbo man expects nothing from Buhari.
No, but the Igbo man did not invest in the Buhari government.
No. What did you invest? Votes.
Yes.
But votes, is that the first time?
No, but the Igbo man did not invest his votes
I can come in
in
there.
Buhari, so
I can come in there.
why would they expect so much from the
No,
Buhari?
they invested so much.
We're coming to that.
The Igbo invested so much, and that is the mistake even those who are advising President Buhari are making. In Igbo land alone, you have over 7 million registered voters by INEC records. And I'm giving you the spread of Igbo in Nigeria. And that will give you more than another 7 million outside Igbo land. But unfortunately, President Jonathan disappointed Igbo too, but not in the magnitude that they are having it now. And when things got to a head, many, including myself, campaigned against endorsing unconditional endorsement of President Jonathan without making commitment as to what he will do for Igbo, having given him all those votes that brought him to power, and he didn't do anything to appreciate it. And I remember Dr. Alex Ekweme also granted an interview to the Sun newspaper where he admitted that Igbo people may not vote for President, that was the way he put it diplomatically, may not vote for President Jonathan the way they voted before, but that did not mean that we are going to vote for President Buhari. And that was exactly what happened. On election day, the Igbo people nationwide, including Igbo people at home, voted with their backside. They sat back at home. And what was the effect? The effect was that President Jonathan got less than 2 million votes from Southeast geopolitical zone. And President Buhari defeated President Jonathan by only 2.5 million votes. And what it simply amounts to is that had the Igbo people voted about half of their voting population for President Jonathan, had President Jonathan made appropriate commitments to the Igbo, instead of taking them for granted, he will still have returned to power. So they are not voting for President Jonathan out of disappointment, paved the way for President Buhari's emergence. So if nobody is making that political arithmetic, that political calculation to give to Igbo the fact that they paved the way for President Buhari to come in, is a very major political mistake, and there will be political consequences. That is what I will tell you with regard to Igbo investment in this government.
Okay, before we talk more about investment, it doesn't look like every Igbo man feels the way you two feel, and the many that you're talking about. I was watching Joe Ibokwe on TV this morning.
I was going to mention his name.
Yes,
before you mentioned.
I was watching Joe Ibokwe, an Igbo man, who is the publicity secretary of the APC in Lagos State.
Yes.
I hope I'm right.
Yes.
And he said that President Muhammad Buhari was on the right track, and that as far as Igbo interests were concerned, he had done a good job. So how do you rationalize that? Because Igbo people saying, no, we've not got a good deal, and Joe and a couple of other people are saying that they're just crying for nothing, everything is fine.
Is it me now? Okay.
You see, I don't really want to join issues with Joe Ibokwe. As a matter of fact, I'll be bringing myself very much low to join issues with him based on his level of reasoning, based on his mentality. I will be doing myself a great damage. But one thing is very clear, and I will use this opportunity to speak to Ndibo in this program. I know that it's not everybody who will stick out his neck and speak the way the two of us are speaking. And we are not the only ones though. There are a few others who have had courage to say something. But let me tell in Igbo. It is said that onye ajụrụ adị ajụ onwe ya. If you are rejected, you do not also reject yourself. It is not for nothing that God gave you this number and gave you this spread. There is no way Igbo will put their hands together and coalesce and control the machinery of a political party and not become a critical factor in the power equation of this country. There is no way that a government will be formed without consulting. I'll give you two instances. In the First Republic, Igbo people didn't have to form NCNC, but they coalesced on that platform. Majority of them, not all of them. But no government could be formed then, except that the Northern People's Congress went into a coalition with the NCNC, which was led by Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. And Igbo people were well accommodated in that government. In the Second Republic, it repeated itself. Again,
NPP and MPP.
They coalesced on NPP, controlled the two states that Igbo had at that time, and even had the Plateau state to lean on its own shoulders to liberate itself from the hegemony of the North. That was why the late Solomon La was called most of the time liberator and emancipator, because he aligned with the NPP. And MPN could not form a stable government except that he went into a political accord with the NPP. And that was why at that time that we had Dr. Alex Ekwema as Vice President, and from the NPP side we have Chief Umezuoke as Speaker of House of Representatives. We have never had another speaker ever since, except again under the IBB regime when we had Agunanekwe, which was a military arrangement. So I saw this, some of us saw this coming when Dr. Azikiwe had become weak and there was no longer a rallying point. So we thought of a rallying platform, and that brought about the APGA that was supposed to have addressed this problem. Unfortunately, I don't want to go into that, but it didn't survive certain machinations to be able to address it. And ever since, you see Igbo political leaders, they tell you that it's better to negotiate from the inside of a big party. And I ask the simple question, how does Jonah negotiate with the whale once inside the belly of the whale? You cannot. Negotiation is eyeball to eyeball, not when you are absorbed. And I remember again Dr. Azikiwe saying that our people are better off being majority in a minority party where their voice will be heard, rather than being minority in a majority party where they will be assimilated without stress, without stress. And I add that to the fact that from 1999 to this day, I am yet to be informed, except my memory is short, of any motion moved by any Igbo legislator in the National Assembly, whether House of Rep or Senate, that had the implication of addressing any of the numerous problems facing these people. We're not even talking about a bill, whether it failed or not, but there has never been any such thing. And we have had 45 House of Representatives in every dispensation and 15 senators. So when the people that are elected, supposedly elected, are also totally sleeping, dormant, in an arena where they should showcase the fact that they are representing some people, continue that way, what will be the solution? And the solution is that 2019 is around the corner. We must begin now to make ourselves relevant. Even President Buhari told Al Jazeera when he was addressing the issue of IPOB and MASOB, he said that we are in a multi-party democracy, that Igbo people should go and organize themselves and vote the way they like. You can imagine that kind of opinion coming from the president, like advising the Igbo on what they should do for themselves.
Okay. I was watching a TV program sometime today, and someone was saying that as far as the Igbo situation is concerned, the Biafran war is not over. That they're still paying for the sins, in quotes, of going against the Nigerian nation. That the 3 R's, rehabilitation, reconstruction, and the third one.
3 R's.
Rehabilitation,
reconciliation, and reconstruction.
So maybe reconciliation,
rehabilitation.
no, maybe the first 2 R's worked, but rehabilitation has not worked.
No, only reconciliation, if at all. There's no rehabilitation, there is no reconstruction.
So does it mean you agree that the war is not over?
Well, before I come to the issue of whether the war is over or not, you see the position of the Igbo man. You heard Chief Chekwa Sokore. He said he took a position on the issue of electing Jonathan, President Jonathan. I supported President Jonathan because I saw him then as a better candidate than President Buhari. And I'm clapping today because my decision was not wrong. I was open. I made it clear that President Buhari and President Jonathan put side by side.
As it concerns the Igbo man?
As it concerns Nigeria.
Okay.
The hunger today has no tribe, it has no religion. Go to Kano. If you go to Meshao, these people who doing tea, they ask you, do you want Buhari tea or Jonathan's tea?
Which one is Buhari tea and which one is
Go to Kano first. When you go to Kano, when you go to Kano, tell them you want Buhari tea or Shagari tea or Jonathan's tea.
Some Nigerians now.
So you see, I went for President Jonathan because I was convinced that he was in a better position to address the issue of Nigeria.
No, but on hindsight, with all the corruption,
No, I'm coming to that.
all the revelations,
I'm coming to that point.
do you think that Jonathan was a better deal? It's still a better deal?
No. You see what we are seeing now. That's why some of us have the opinion that most of these things should be made public. I read online last night about 3 a.m. how they were digging some billions in dollars in a farm. What stopped television from going to show us? You see, it has reached a point that
Are you suggesting it's all propaganda?
we have reached a situation that we have to be very careful. Put it, let us see them get those funds, particularly the one that was buried in the farm. I support the anti-corruption war 100%, but it must not be selective. It must go by the rule of law. When you have such a situation, let Nigerians see with their korokoro eyes. If you go back to the internet now, people are asking questions.
No, but
anyway, let us. That's not the question.
Chief Nwanyama.
Yes.
APC said that the probe of the arms gates, as it's called, is a probe of people that participated in the sharing of that money. And PDP was in power, so no APC member got the funds. So why would they start prosecuting APC for a fund they did not benefit from?
I have no problem with that. There are too many thieves in public office.
Outside the arms gate.
There are too many armed robbers in public office. Robbers, thieves. It's painful that some of these things went on. Most Nigerians didn't know. It's very painful. Our common patrimony. Somebody will steal to the point of 1 billion, 2 billion or more. He didn't know what to do with it. He decided to bury it. Then why did you steal it in the first place?
Okay,
anyway,
we have less than 3 minutes to conclude.
Oh my God.
How should Igbos engage at this time to get whatever they think is their due? I'll start with you, Chuck.
Okay, first of all, because in the interim, I will urge President Buhari to have a rethink. I will urge President Buhari to go back to the Constitution and take a look at the provision on federal character. And also consider that the president of a country is the president of everybody. And it makes political sense to give Igbo accommodation, even do for them more than they expected. For instance, Yes, my brother here has said that he had told many Igbos he has spoken to that should expect nothing. My own is different. They should expect everything. And it is the duty of President Buhari to give them what is due to them. But having said that, I have made the point that nobody who is rejected also rejects himself. So this is the time to begin to build up, mobilize, coalesce, strengthen a platform of your own. There's going to be major realignment of political forces. Of course, there's implosion in PDP. As for APC, it was more like a physical combination than a chemical combination, because as soon as they were formed, they returned to their various cleavages. And I see those cleavages rearing their heads as we approach 2019. So this is the best time we can use that which we already have to position for the future and come back to our preeminent position that nobody formed government except he had a relationship with us, political relationship.
Yes, mine will be very short. I think what is happening to the Igbo people now is a blessing in disguise. They should go back and put their acts together. With what is happening to them, they have come to understand more about how they are taking in the nation they call their own. So it is not a question of crying over a spilt milk. I see stand that they should expect nothing, because President Muhammad Buhari will not read their federal character provision. He makes his appointment. He doesn't care if you like hit your head on the wall. He has his targets, and he will. I have listened to President Muhammad Buhari one-on-one, and I know how his mind works. So all these things we are saying, it doesn't bother him.
So in summary, the Igbos
we should expect nothing.
should go home and get their act together.
That's all.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Where's your cup?
I'll send you I'll send you a cup. I knew you were going to ask Jibdan. Well, when we return, we'll be looking at the crisis in PMAN and the progress that has been made. Don't go away.
Are you watching Nigeria's biggest late night show?
The government is doing its best. Buhari himself is an issue. Just as the Buhari organization has made Goodluck Jonathan an issue, we have lost an institution set up to fight corruption.
Advocate Yusuf, the chief of that, is born out of what they symbolize.
The average Nigerian man today, what do you have for him? Anika was with us for a while. What happened? He became on the journey and discovered that we are too transparent.
The banking license was cancelled in 1 day, and the license was cancelled in 1 day.
When I was retrenched, it became worse. At some times, they even find 50-50% of us. Just tell us you want a nation that will be the most powerful black nation in the world. What would you? How?
ONN Late Show and ONN Sunday